Hey y'all, it's your girl Gemini Jazz, and we are back with another video. And today we are going to be discussing Chiron through all 12 zodiac signs. Okay, so first and foremost, before we dive into all of this good stuff about Chiron, because we have lots of things to discuss when it comes to Chiron. It's such a deep and mysterious energy to kind of navigate. Okay, but before we get into all of that, I'd just like to say thank you for being here. If you are new to my channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you are returning, welcome back. Thank you for being here. I hope things have been going well on your end and all that good stuff. And I don't have any announcements outside of what I always, kind of suggest. But if you are looking to dive more into what we're going to talk about in this video and get readings or more insight individually on your chart, hit the description box below because I have all of my contact information, my website, my social platforms, so on and so forth. And you can access me and all of my services, including my membership, the Celestial City, that is only $33.33 per month, as well as the readings that I have available at this time. Okay, so now let's dive into this video about Chiron in the signs. So Chiron, what is Chiron, right? Chiron is an asteroid, and we all know about that, right? It's an asteroid, it's not a planet, and it's often referred to as the wounded healer, right? Chiron is connected to our deepest wounds, right? The knowledge and also the healing that comes along with that. So, the self-healers, we all have that ability to heal ourselves. We all have the ability to know what these wounds and whatnot are stemming from. We just have to tap in. So Chiron is utilized in astrology to show us where our emotional baggage is, so to speak. So the lesson that Chiron evolves basically is the ways that we recognize and deal with our deepest wounds, right? Or sometimes how we don't deal with our deepest wounds. And a lot of that comes from our earliest encounters with life, with people, our relating experiences, right? Memories and things that are taught to be hidden, right? Because they are basically deemed unpleasant or not good or harmful or painful. And so therefore they must then be unacceptable. And so because of these energies, this is where emotions like guilt and shame, abandonment, low self-esteem, low self-worth, fears about being rejected, unworthiness, all of these things come into play because of how society deems certain emotions and certain encounters with life to be unacceptable. Now, wherever Chiron falls in our birth chart, preferably by sign, right? First and foremost, you got to recognize the sign, which is why this video is here. So recognize what sign Chiron is, and then you take into account the house placement. Where is Chiron in your house? Like with the first house, second house, eighth house, wherever, because then that gives it a different flavor to what's happening with Chiron being in, just say, Aries, or Chiron in Virgo, so on and so forth. So once you take into account the sign, as well as the house placement, then you have to pay attention to the aspects that it forms with other planets and other houses and whatnot in your chart. So you can recognize by seeing all these things, the area in which we feel vulnerable or quote unquote weak, or these things that might really evoke feelings of low self-esteem and low self-worth that we were previously speaking about. Okay, so Chiron's placement, in turn, what it does is it shines a light on our past hurts, our wounds, things, even such as like childhood trauma, all of those experiences, those ill experiences, from previous, things, even maybe in past life type of situations, depending on where it falls in your chart, right? So this is what we like to call emotional baggage, right? So this is what it's doing is shining a light, so to speak, or revealing, how our repeated interactions with others or with the world, excuse me, with the world, so to speak, will provoke our insecurities, and maybe even, you know, what we deem as being failures. So there's also an option, right? This is where that quote unquote free will comes in, because although it's revealing it, we still have to make a choice to see it, right? So that's kind of where that line goes in between that Chiron energy. Chiron's purpose is to make us realize that our weak spots are not feelings that we can erase or disregard, rather than they are something that need to be embraced. They cannot necessarily be denied, right? We cannot just say, you know, this terrible thing that I feel about myself needs to be ignored, because it only amplifies more of that emotion, more of that feeling, right? So let's think of it this way. Take peekaboo, the game peekaboo, for example. Just because you're covering your eyes, it does not mean the person or the thing on the other side of your hand does not exist. You're simply choosing not to see it. So that's the way that we can see Chiron. Chiron gives us an opportunity to recognize that there's something still on the other side of what we can't see. We have to literally just make the choice to pull our hands down and say, I see this for what this is. Now, what are we going to do about it? Facing your fears, facing those insecurities and those feelings of guilt and shame and whatnot. Okay, so if we forget the experience, right, this is how we think. If we forget the experience itself, then our bodies and minds will forget it also. No, that's not the truth, right? Our bodies and minds will still contain that feeling, right, as a sensory or a trace memory. And if you have not read the book, The Body Holds the Number, it goes into more detail about this on a psychological aspect of things. Okay, so now how do we use Chiron for our growth and our gain, right? So all these feelings of shame and guilt and all these low vibrational emotions that we're speaking about, right? But how can we in turn transmute that energy and turn the pain into purpose, right? And making that purpose, or making that all of that lucrative for us and even pleasurable, right? So Chiron's cycle of reoccurrence, basically, Chiron, what it does in turn, it creates these situations, right, in life, these circumstances in life that's going to trigger us. But in turn, the reward comes from Chiron when we learn to integrate our painful experiences, allowing these triggers to invite us to navigate why we're being triggered, where this is stemming from, how can we grow through this, right? And integrate these experiences as a part of our identities, right? So this is turning that pain into purpose and also pleasure. Right. So, but keep in mind that as long as we continue to view these imperfections that need to be removed or purged from us, then we'll continue to see them as flaws in others as well as ourselves, right? Because it's all about mirroring. Every situation and every person in our life is mirroring some aspect of ourselves, right? So, this is going to continue to impact our capacity for relationships and mutual understanding of others if we continue to see Chiron, or continue to see our wounds or these feelings that we have, our insecurities, as flaws, so to speak, okay, instead of using them to empower us to actually help heal other people. So now, without further ado, let's start navigating Chiron through the signs. Hey y'all, so we're going to cover Chiron in the sign of Scorpio. So people with this placement possibly have had some type of sexual abuse or sexual trauma in their lives. And it's highly possible, it's not for every case, but it's highly possible. A person with this placement is drawn to the esoteric powers, divination, occultism, things of that nature, but they do it in a form of sacred work to do healing and working with others. Scorpio is the ruler of fear as well as death. And so that's where the occult and divination aspect of things come into play. This person can easily read other people, right? Because Scorpio has the ability to see the different layers and to be able to lift the veil of things to where you can see the clarity of a lot of different things, because they have this probing nature. If they aren't quite sure about something, then they're definitely going to ask questions and do the research, okay? And so They might even have a sense of fascination with life and death, and the meaning of it all, metaphysics, psychology, all of those Scorpio rule things. And this person can be carrying karma from their ancestors and their past life dealings as well. So, a tip for people with the Chiron and Scorpio placement, the healing happens by embracing your own power and helping others to embrace theirs as well. And it could be power in any form, whether it's their sexual power, spiritual power, mental power, however. You will find a lot of people with displacement in psychology or maybe even sexual healing, sex education, things of that nature. Also doing divination or occultism, spiritual work, things like in those areas. And this is a very taboo kind of topic because Scorpio rules all things taboo. So they are the ones that are very eccentric, very different, right? With the Chiron and Scorpio placement, the wound is to your perception of death, to your perception of transformation, also perception surrounding, sexuality and things of that nature. So it can manifest in different ways, right? So fear and loss or death due to feeling disconnected from spirit, right? So that could be something. The tendency to have dark moods or even paranoia, because, that Scorpio energy always has like a little bit of skepticism because they can see so deep into things. And that can bring up paranoia and a feeling that the world is kind of like against you. Also, this can manifest by a tendency to build defensive walls against being hurt by other people and just building up walls in life in general, to where you don't explore, you don't take risks because of that fear. That defense mechanism is really rooted in fear. Also, people with displacement, they can be protective of people and things in their lives. Sometimes, on an alternative level, it can manifest in vindictiveness, manipulation, and destructive or even jealous tendencies. Um, some people can be self-destructive and desire to be free from attachments to the world. So it can manifest in different ways whether they are, that Scorpio energy can be possessive, but also this can manifest in the opposite where they don't have any attachment to any possessions. And that can also manifest in a destructive way. Also, with that Scorpio energy, the drive to understand the essence or the meaning of life, that's also something that they thrive on, but it can manifest in another way where they become preoccupied with the death and dying and so on. So, with this, the healing journey involves integrating the dark side of the soul, right? The shadows, doing that shadow work. And then once that is integrated, the gift is to understand, the secrets of life and death, right? They have a different type of perspective. They have a deep, sense of knowledge of what that is. And being able to research that. Also, there's like this search for trust, right? So searching for trust and having the desire to trust others will transform this placement, or the person with this placement will transform their consciousness, right? So that is also something. And then through deep introspection, going within, tapping into the psyche, whether it's going to therapy, becoming a psychologist, or just studying the mind, these people will begin to understand how everything transforms and nothing truly dies. So it kind of alleviates that obsession that they would have with death and things like that. Also, the essence of life stays the same, even if the outer form changes, and having that understanding helps them to understand themselves, right? That although they may transform, because these people can be different, they can, dress different, perceive life in a different way. And although things on the outside of them may change, they understand that the essence, their true being stays the same, right? Who they are at their core. And, they can then let go of the form of things and see that nothing is really lost, right? So they might have issues with loss and not understanding loss. Abandonment issues might be something as well. And also the Chiron and Scorpio placement has the ability to transform themselves on a profound level through accepting the darker side of human nature, understanding it. So you might even see these people do something like um, what is it, like going into like detective work, right? But really understanding, like doing behavioral science or behavioral studies to understand the psychology of, you know, human nature, the psychology of like people who commit, you know, heinous crimes and things like that. And they will have a powerful magnetic presence. You can almost pick someone out that has like Chiron and Scorpio. They have like this powerful magnetic presence, and others instinctively trust them. Although they might not be trusting of others right off the bat, people just typically seem to trust them. And it's because that sense of depth that they have in understanding and empathy with suffering that people tend to flock to these individuals, right? And then there's that recognition of the immortal part of the soul, right? Understanding that, like, it's kind of like just seeing the spirit, and that's kind of like how they show up, just in spirit also. And so that in turn will bring with it like a sense of passion for life, for a profound understanding of the mysterious aspects of lives. And also it makes you a fascinating person that you can share these insights to other people. And so that also kind of draws people to you, and you being able to share that helps others heal and have a deeper and different understanding of life. All right, so Chiron and Scorpio, that is all that I have for you. I hope that this has been beneficial and helpful, whether you are watching for yourself or someone you love. And if you are looking to navigate your Chiron placement a little deeper, go ahead and hit the description box below and navigate to my website to book a reading. You can also purchase the Chiron Reiki infused candles and join the Celestial City membership for $33 a month. All right, make sure you like, share, and subscribe this video. Y'all have a wonderful day.